Your food.
Every time I hit record, Dawn's voice is in my head. So really, she gets all the credit. Um, and this week, uh, this is for these last 3 weeks of the Bible study. It's just a chapter a week. So chapter 3 of the Epistle of James. Um, and my translation that I have breaks it up verses 1 through 12 and then 13 through 18. Is that a similar break for some other translations that we have?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Okay, wonderful. So why don't we go ahead and we will read those first 12 verses, discuss for a bit, and then read the last section. Is there someone who is willing to go ahead and read?
I can.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. The reason I use this translation, just so you know, it's my sister's Bible. I was given it by my brother-in-law, and so I've been reading out of it. It's not the one I'm normally used to, but it's a more of a contemporary translation. Controlling the tongue. Dear brothers and sisters, not many of you should become teachers in the church, for we who teach will be judged more strictly. Indeed, we all make many mistakes. For if we could control our tongues, we would be perfect and could also control ourselves in every other way. We can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth, and a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go, even though the winds are strong. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches. But a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. It is a whole world of wickedness, corrupting your entire body. It can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. People can tame all kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and fish, but no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Sometimes it praises our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who have been made in the image of God. And so blessing and cursing come pouring out of the same mouth. Surely, my brothers and sisters, this is not right. Does a spring of water bubble out with both fresh water and bitter water? Does a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? No, and you can't draw fresh water from a salty spring.
Thank you, Leslie. I like that the way that it's phrased. You can't draw fresh water from a salty spring.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because of the modern salty.
Yeah. Fresher, sassy.
So what's jumping out to people in this section?
But there's the old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Words have power.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much we choose for our words to not have power, both positive and negative, they have power. And it reminded me kind of about this, but my God sighting that I was going to say. I babysat this weekend and the kids' grandma came over. I've been watching these kids for like 3 years. I know grandma well. And she had texted me, hey, do you care if I come get the kids? I want to hang out with them. And I was like, yeah, you can take them, whatever. Sure, take the children. And when she came over, she said, how you doing? And I said the typical response, I'm good. How are you? And she looked at me and she's like, I know what's going on. And it was tapping her head. She's like, how are you doing? And it was cute because she obviously meant she knew what was going on with my head and stuff. It made me think that dad then, the kid's dad, had told his mom what was going on. And that made me feel special,
Mm.
just because he had thought of, I don't know why, he had thought of me and told his mom.
Right.
And when she asked how I was doing, she wasn't, you just ask people, that's what you do. How you doing? I'm good. How are you? And that's when she said, no, I know what's going on. And like I said, she was tapping her head, like looking at me.
Yeah.
But I like knowing that Dad was thinking of me and that she was thinking of me. And it was those words. They were thinking of me, but that Dad took the time to use his words and tell his mom, and that she was using those words and really wanting to know. Words have power, good and bad. And sometimes just asking how someone is, or just knowing, I don't know. But words can be used both ways. And that's what, I don't know, that's what this made me think of. The strength in words. Words alone can't move a mountain, but they can gather an army.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me think too that take the time before you speak, because you can say something and you didn't mean it bad, but it comes out that way. And like you say, they can be very, very hurtful. So just really pay attention to what you're saying and give it some thought. It's like they say with a text, read it before you send it. Well, same with in your head, think about what you're saying and it hurts people. It doesn't take much.
Yeah.
It can be hurtful.
There seems to be a lot of wisdom that runs counter to some common idioms here, because there's also the one that comes to mind, those who can't do teach. And this passage is very insistent on the importance of teachers.
Yeah.
Now, I do not think that even teachers are perfect, but I do think that there is wisdom in what is being taught to young people, especially. It's very important.
What's funny, because this morning I was at Daisy's new speech therapist. So after your sermon on Sunday talking about how do we make life more accessible, and then taking her to speech therapy and then reading this, it's sort of like all and it's just
circling.
Yeah, when there are people who don't know how to use words, or they don't interpret words the same way the rest of us do, and it excludes them so much from society. And just this idea of like how important words are, and the fact that some people don't have access to them.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I don't have any complete thoughts, but it's just very interesting to have this be the passage after being where I was. And also when I sit there, she struggles with what they call social pragmatic speech, which is reading tone, sarcasm, some more subtlety, nonverbal communication. But I'm sitting in the lobby, and every time I start feeling like I wish it was easier for her, wish she could go to regular school, and I start getting a little down about it. But then I go to this, and there's people with profound disabilities who don't speak at all, or kids running around, and it's like, okay, like check, like like remember, like check your privilege, remember you're still like doing a lot better than a lot of people. There's just something about how you use words and then how people don't have access to words. That's in my mind right now. It's only half a thought, but I thought I'd share it.
No, but access to words is something people don't realize, because we were at our school district. We had pretty much anybody I've talked to has this thing about they service disabilities they see, but not the ones they don't. And it's a huge issue. It's been an issue for years before my kids went there. But not having words isn't a disability you see. And that's where a challenge comes in with it's having the words and receiving the words. Can I receive it in the tone that was intended?
And that's one of the things I started saying the short prayer that I pray before I preach, because I know that there is sometimes a disconnect there. I always pray, may the words that I speak and the words that you hear both be of God, because
but they're not the same.
They're not the same.
Receptive and expressive language are two totally different things.
Mhm.
I was thinking about this passage, and I was thinking about the fact that this is first directed to teachers, because we can have whatever nutty ideas we have, but if we're not sharing them, and if people are not listening to us as a person of authority, then those nutty ideas are just ours, and they don't do a great deal of harm. But I look at what's happening in our world right now, and we see that the situation we're in this country is not by anything other than it's been disseminated through words, untrue words sometimes, but or unwise words. And you look at the impact it has on our country right now. It's divided us into at least two strongly different camps that just don't see things the same way at all, don't even perceive reality the same. And it's because of words. And a single leader maybe isn't totally responsible. Maybe he's just revealing what a lot of us have felt on the inside, but it's given people permission to believe in tremendously destructive ways. And it's all because of words that are being spoken, the words that people are even willing to listen to now. Because if you say certain words that people don't want to hear, they don't perceive them to be reality. And I've been doing a lot of looking and studying on why certain people believe the way they do. But these words affect the way we think and the way we perceive reality, and they affect who we're afraid of. They affect our own, they affect us in what we fear, and fear drives us to live our lives in certain ways. And this warning that about leaders and being careful as a leader what you speak. And I think by reflection and being careful to the type of leader you listen to, because what we listen to becomes who we are, just through a series of just through repetition. And it's just it's incredible to realize that our words and the way we use them can have such a powerful effect. They can affect. Just look at cults like the Jim Jones cult, and what the power of his words were that led to that. And right now we're at war with Iran because, man, it's just, it leads to war. It leads to, they'll talk a little bit more about that, I guess. But anyway, yeah, this is a really powerful passage, and about the tongue. And I don't think we sometimes spend as much time thinking about how important our words are. My dog's going crazy again, trying to bark at something. But anyway, yeah, and it seems like, that in the world they say they have a saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Said that, yeah.
Not true. Yeah. On so many levels, the words that we say to others will hurt them and can hurt us, and the words other people say to us can really hurt us in deep ways. They can. And the fact is, in this passage, it talks about the fact that words, it's so evil to use words badly because we're all made in the image of God.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so those are just some quick thoughts I had about the tongue and about words and about leaders. That we can see it all around us. That James really hits the nail right on the head here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it too, like a big I won't tell you the whole background, it's take forever, but I've been really into this idea of Eckhart Tolle's, like the outside world reflects the inside world. Mm-hmm. And really all we can control for the most part is our inside world. But if everybody worked on their inside world, then the outside world. So if you're like upset about the world, like what can I do about me, right? And it's through this Kendrick Lamar album I will bore you guys with. But this was like kind of relevant to that idea because, I do, like any human, and they say that in the first paragraph to make me feel a little better, but I will lose my temper. Like I lose my shit with my kids or my husband, not every day, but and it feels so good, right? It really does feel like setting the world on fire, because I can be cutting and I feel so good about it. And all the stuff comes
I was
out
gonna say, I explode
And it's-
out in like,
and it feels powerful, and I feel like I'm in control and I feel big, right? And for a few minutes, and then I have to be like, okay, no, like, is this really how I want to interact with the people in my life? And it always, always, always means, okay, I need to call a friend. I need to go to the gym. I need to drink a smoothie. There is something I haven't done to take care of myself.
Mhm.
And it's coming out in these like sharp words to the people around me. And it's so interesting because a sharp word from me can change. It's like this little rudder. It can change the course of my family. It can change the course of our evening, our vacation, road trip, right? If someone comes out with these, it
Yeah.
changes the whole vibe. And it's just very interesting. Like, okay, first let's control that. Let's because sometimes it does feel like having a horse on a bit. Because
Mhm.
I'm mad. I want to say things. It's like, okay, if you can rein that in, take a breath, drink a cup of tea, take a nap, take a shower. But it's small, but it really can affect how people interact with each other and their quality of home life. Because if I'm a shrew all the time, nobody wants to be there. Anyway, that's my thought.
Absolutely.
I think when I'm a shrew back to somebody, I was like, I just escalated this. But I was right. They were clearly.
Well, and if you have someone who doesn't understand tone communicating to you all the time, it can come off very,
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're not meaning to be rude
Mhm.
90% of the time, but it's hard to have someone be rude, like speak in a rude tone.
Yeah.
So it starts to get exhausting.
We had a kiddo in the youth group at my previous church who no understanding of tone, and he would accidentally offend. Most of the kids had it figured out, and they
Yeah.
knew he didn't mean anything by it, but the adults would have a really hard time. Where he would just say something like, "I didn't realize you were that old," and and if you pulled him to the side and say like, "Hey, bud, that's you have to be careful about that," he would feel so embarrassed by it, but just no understanding of it.
Yeah.
So I became his tone translator a little bit. um,
It's interesting in this particular passage, just as kind of a Bible nerd kind of a thing. In this
Mhm.
passage, they use James used the word hell, and the
Mhm.
particular Greek word he uses here is Gehenna. There are other words that are used. This is the only time basically outside of the Gospels where Gehenna is used. Jesus used to use it, but Gehenna, I don't know if you guys know, but that's an actual literal place just outside of Jerusalem. It was the town garbage dump.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
everything was there, and the place was constantly burning. And Jesus used it in a kind of eschatological, symbolic way to talk about destruction, and always consuming destruction. And so this is the particular word that James uses here. Sometimes, like Paul and some other places, they use things like Hades and other words that refer to more of a Greek view. But I just thought I'd bring that up as a point of interest that this is a literal place. And when James, it probably centered around Jerusalem, and maybe a lot of the people he was speaking to were there too. But they're just saying, it's like this terrible burning garbage dump out there.
Yeah.
And that's anyway. So
And while we're on that topic, I think it's interesting the alternate here. Let me find exactly where it is. Um, I'm looking at like three different translations right now, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm at the right spot. It's sets on fire I have the sets on fire the cycle of nature, but I think in the one here it's the course of one's life. So the alternate translation I have here is that it's a wheel of birth, and there's kind of a pagan element that is in here. That's the chance in life, the ups and the downs, and so it's the expectation that everybody is on this up and down in life, and a small thing can kind of set that wheel off of its course that it is the natural flows and send it off into the fire instead of going back through the ups and the downs. And so there's that was an interesting thing that James was doing with the fire, is that we should be on this wheel, but we can easily fall off of the wheel.
And this is something that's very, very common in the Middle East, and it's a very dry, arid part of the world most of the time. And brush fires and things like that are common. And the smallest little thing sets them up.
Well, and you lived in California, didn't you?
Yeah, I've had them right. Not actually the year after we lived there, my neighborhood got evacuated because of brush fires, but I've driven through them. You're driving somewhere and you like can't go that way because the road's on fire and it burns right up to the highway. It's terrifying. Yeah, I've been right in the middle of lots of them. Yes, terrifying. Brush fires are horrible. Ominous.
I watched that show, Fire Country, and that's the brush. I mean, it does. It strikes you as holy cow.
Yeah, when Jake first looked for a house, we were living in Australia, and he went to go visit and was going to look at houses because I had Hope was a baby, and he's like, "Okay, I can't visit these 6 that we picked out because they're on fire." I'm like, "Well, let's cross them off."
Yeah.
I'm like,
They're not motivated.
like really like dense, like in the like urban center of the city, because everything in the suburbs was on fire when he visited.
Wow.
And it's just so. I mean, I liked our neighborhood, but that's why we ended up there.
But the why is kind of,
It's just part of life at that point. You kind of live around it, but.
And I apologize, David. I interrupted you. Was there a thought that you wanted to finish about the fires?
Not really. You guys followed in the same thing. I was just going to say that just thinking after what you said, and you look at all this destruction and death and stuff like that, and it started by such a tiny little thing. It started by a lightning strike or someone careless with a cigarette, something like that, and then lives and property, and it could such huge consequences for small actions. And that's the way the tongue is. Careless words. You just don't know where that's going to end up. Anyway, so that's.
The one thing I don't understand it. I don't know anything about firefighting, and obviously the best thing to do is water, and I don't know, it's like a powder stuff they drop. But I do know when the fires get massive, they set another fire.
Okay.
And fire fights fire to bring it out. I can't think, there's a special name for it, but no, they'll set another fire.
Backfires. They set backfires, they call them.
Okay. But it's interesting that fire fights fire is a true thing, that words can go either way. And we've got certain things going on that's gathering and bringing more. But you kind of need to stand up against it, because standing up against it is what really the only thing that can bring it down.
Yeah.
And like I see, ideally it's small enough you could water and stuff, but when they get bad enough, that's not gonna, we don't have that much materials and men and stuff to do that.
And I think that's probably why, I know, David, you've said in the past explicitly that you are not a strict pacifist, and that there are reasons for force that are perfectly valid. And I think that's kind of what Jackie is saying as well.
My mother talked about the fact when she was small, they'd have fire. She was in Minnesota, but they would have fires across the fields there, and she talked about setting back fires with her dad, because what you do, take everything that the fire can burn and you just destroy it, so that it has nothing to burn. But on the other hand, when fires get out of hand, when they get wild enough, they get hot enough, they'll jump those backfire situations. So yeah, you can try to combat it, but sometimes when they get so hot, so fast, the flames go so fast, there's so much heat that even across those backfires, they'll jump through sparks or just through the heat and just go right ahead. And anyway, I don't know how far to carry this analogy both ways, but it's interesting to think about. And just, I'm not sure how much I don't know how much as a Christian we can fight bad words with bad words against them. I don't know how far I can go with that. Yeah, I think sometimes as Christians, we don't fight fire with fire. Specifically. Yeah, there are things you can do, but we can only go so far. You can't fight violence with violence, I don't think. I believe in passive. I believe in peacekeeping, which means actively doing things. But I don't think we can resort to the same kinds of rhetoric and the same kinds of, verbal violence in order to fight it. I think Jesus showed us a better way. He spoke sharp words, but he didn't speak, and he certainly didn't practice any kind of violence.
Right.
Yeah.
But they call in California, you have to maintain what they call a defensible zone. So you remove brush and you remove hazards, and you are constantly cleaning and making it a safer, greener, better place all the time. So that when and they do set back fires, and the idea is that if I destroy everything, then when the fire gets to me, there's nothing for it to destroy.
Right.
And that is one way I have had relationships like that in my life. I would say life has taught me that isn't an ideal way to live, that if I destroy everything, there's nothing left to be destroyed. I would suggest Jesus wants better for me than that. But I do, if we want to carry this metaphor on as far as we possibly can, this idea that if I'm constantly clearing the brush from my life and I'm watering my flowers and I'm not letting dry, dead things accumulate all around me, that when the fire comes, I have a space that can maybe not be impermeable, but less likely to burn down, that I have some protection. I don't know. I like that idea.
If you're watering your own garden, you can resist the weight of the world. Here we go.
I think Leslie has a good example of that. Remember your sister Laura and her husband Chris was just very punctilious. He was very particular about clearing out the brush and stuff like that. And because of that, their house was saved and a lot of other houses burned. So you prepare.
This was in Lakeside. They lived in Lakeside, which is outside of San Diego.
Yeah, I know right where that is.
And when we went up there, and they live out and it was way out in the mountains and hills, and they did have the fires go through there. But when we were visiting with them, Chris was constantly out there weed whacking because it was just something that you just had to do. You had to keep it up. And their house did not burn down. It jumped kind of across, but it also was partly saved because the neighbor didn't make it out, and he jumped into his swimming pool with a straw and breathed until went across. When it went across him and went towards Laura and Chris's house, he got out with he got out and watered down the outside walls of their home so that it would stop the fires. So that was kind of what he did, but that was they still lost one wall, which made their house not livable until they got it fixed because it was not earthquake proof. So they did live in an RV, which they had parked at their property and everything. But it was it's hard, and you hear about all these fires and everything, and like those last ones in Malibu, those were crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing that really got me was I was looking at this, about the spring does water bubble out with both fresh and bitter water. And I think of that popcorn, the kettle corn I love to eat. And I love it's sweet and salty at the same time. And I just love that and everything. But I was just thinking about that yeah, well, some foods can be sweet and salty.
Well, what I was reading as I was preparing for today is that, especially at this time, there was the belief that the wisdom in nature is its consistency, and that we as humans, where we fail is often when we are inconsistent and we are breaking from the laws of nature. And so that's some of the ideas that this was getting at.
Tom, did you start to say something and I cut you off? I'm sorry.
That was terrible.
I felt I couldn't quite tell.
I got nothing to say about fire.
Oh,
I just wanted to go back for a second to that sticks and stone thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, you can get in a fight physically,
Mm-hmm.
and you might get hurt, but you blow it off, and that's it. But if somebody says something to you that hurts you, it can hurt you to your soul.
Oh yeah,
And that lasts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In a day or two, if you got punched out, okay, good. But this can go on for weeks. So it shows how much your tongue can hurt somebody.
Mhm.
You really got to watch for that. So next time, just hit them.
How about that?
Oh, that was not the lesson.
I'm not advocating for physical violence here. All right. Well,
Finish it off.
we are almost at time, so I'm going to go ahead and read the end of this chapter.
Excuse me.
And then if we want to discuss it a little bit, we can, or we can just kind of leave this this last part of the passage and reflect on it throughout our days, depending on if people need to head off immediately. So, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. And that's from the New International Version.
Well, amen for peacemakers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to hear the Message version in the last minute?
Sure.
Anyone?
Sure.
Do you want to be counted wise to build a reputation for wisdom? Here's what you do. Live well, live wisely, live humbly. It's the way you live, not the way you talk, that counts. Mean-spirit ambition isn't wisdom. Boasting that you are wise isn't wisdom. Twisting the truth to make yourself sound wise isn't wisdom. It's the furthest thing from wisdom. It's animal cunning, devilish conniving. Whenever you're trying to look better than others or get the better of others, things fall apart and everyone ends up at each other's throats. Real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life and is characterized by getting along with others. It is gentle, reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessings, not hot one day and cold the next, not two-faced. You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoy its results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honor. definitely a different way of phrasing it.
So James says, shut up and just be kind.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, when you think about it, you want to emulate somebody that acts properly. They don't have to tell you do this, do that. You like their life and you see, and I know I brought it up before. There was a guy on Fox News. I can't remember his name now. Black guy. And I was so in love with this guy. I mean, he was talked really well. He talked about the Bible and this and that. And he just seemed like a really good guy. Well, that's your actions. That's what means more than words.
Yeah, I had a friend who planted a church in San Diego. He was a pastor, and he came from Montgomery, Alabama, and came out to live in the most sinful place he could think of, which next door to me. And we could not have been more different, but we ended up very, very close. And he used to say, like, I can preach all day long, but I want my life I want people to say, like, what's going on with him? What answers does he have? And I want to be like that. And I'm like, well, like someone just called CPS on your kids. So let's start with it, buddy. And it was like, but like he really learned and I really learned and we both benefited a lot. I mean, I think he'd say the same thing, but that was the idea. And he realized like living a life like that is not so easy. There was a bunch of stuff he didn't know. And there's a bunch of stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
And none of us were going to like live this exemplary life to prove each other wrong, right? We were just kind of all muddling together. But I do like this attraction, not promotion, right?
What better legacy to leave than have a good life?
Yeah, have a good life.
There's a quote that most of you are probably familiar with, or at least have heard. It's attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Preach the gospel at all times, use words if necessary.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's a 12-step thing too. Like 12-step programs can't advertise. And the whole thing is it's attraction, not promotion. If you want whatever you're trying to get sober from, if you'll see someone who's living that way and you're like, what are you doing? Then you can tell somebody, but no one can like push 12-step programs. Not if you're living according to the rule guidelines, but attraction, not promotion, which I think is nice.
So then if we look at this from the perspective of people's words, if you're looking for wisdom, if you're looking for godly wisdom, you're looking for when people are speaking, who are their words benefiting? Are they benefiting themselves? Or are they benefiting the good of all to bring about peace? And
their tone.
What's that?
I think David, not just their words, but also their tone, right? Are they being humble and gentle, reasonable, considerate?
Absolutely, but even when people can control their tone a little more, I'm just saying, some people are better at that than others. It's not necessary to do that, I guess, to be a leader, but when you really look at what are the results of their words, not just their lives, how do they live, but what are the results of those words? What are they going to be? Are they going to bring about peace? Are they going to bring about mercy, good fruits? Are they partial or hypocritical?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Are we starting fires or tamping them down?
Yeah, good.
Both, usually.
We're all mixed things.
I think I want to be a fireman after this one.
Well, there's definitely a need.
We all make mistakes and we all cause hurt feelings, but there's an intentionality here. And if your intention is to bring about peace and things like that, and then you're also, when you realize what you said is wrong, then you're willing to admit it and say, I'm sorry, we're hurtful. Yeah.
Are we still recording?
We are still recording. I can stop us recording if we would like.
I just wanted to share something that.
Is everyone okay? Are we finished with the Bible study portion of today?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, then I will stop